So you failed level 1. Should you even try again? And this video is motivated by an email I received from somebody who said, my colleague said that if I failed level 1, I should just stop. Level 2 is more difficult. That if I can't get past level 1, I'm not going to get past level 2. That's not untrue. Level 2 is more difficult. But to conclude that you should not do it again because you fail level 1 is looking at the outcome and deciding a course of action based on the outcome. If this were university and this were your first year, and let's say you failed a couple of courses and your GPA was too low to stay in the program, you're not immediately kicked out of the program. You are sent to academic counseling. And in academic counseling, they don't look at, well, you failed, you can't stay here. They look at why did you fail. They look at the process, not the outcome. Failure is an outcome. You got to look at the process. And there are 2 conditions under which you should stop. And I'll get to those 2 conditions right at the end. But let's go through some of the reasons why you fail and why those reasons are not justification to stop. One of the reasons the failure rate at level 1 and even at level 2 is so high is because of 2 criteria. Number 1, it's big. The content is big. And number 2, it's self-study. Bring those 2 things together, it's a recipe for failure. Even from otherwise bright people who had always done well in school find that they fail level 1 and it shocks them. How can I fail? Number 1, you underestimated the size of the content. You know, you've been through a semester at school and you think, well, I know how much reading and work there is to do per course. I have this. Well, there are 57 readings at level 1, all with the intensity of a textbook. Average pages, 45 to 50 pages. So you're talking well over 2,000 pages of content to get through. So if you've given yourself 60 days or 90 days, 2 months or 3 months before the exam, it does not surprise me that that is the outcome. 60 days, 57 readings, that's 1 a day, basically with 3 days off. To maintain that pace every day for 57 days, read the reading. Hope that you understand the reading, internalize the reading, do some practice problems, review the reading, move on every day. That's difficult to do. So if you had 2 months or 3 months, even 4 months, I would say if you failed, you're cutting it close. Typically about 3 days of reading, 57 readings, you should have about 6 months. So if you've had anything less than 6 months and you didn't make it, it's your process that's broken. You didn't give yourself enough time. At least on that criteria. We have time and of course self-study. Let's deal with the time. You didn't give yourself enough time. So we can fix that. As a counselor, as an academic counselor, I would say we can fix that because I can see that's a problem right there. We can fix it next time. Let's look at the second criteria, self-study. This means you're on your own. And a lot of times you may get to a section in the reading where you can't get past the page because you go, I don't get it. I can't figure out what this author is saying because it's not clear enough. Or maybe it's new content and you're not quite sure how to interpret it. And I'll be straight with you here. Some of the readings at CFA at all 3 levels, at 1, 2, and 3, some of those readings, if you don't know what the author's talking about already, you're not going to understand it because it's not a teaching reading, it's a telling reading. That's the author telling you stuff that you already know or that the author assumes that you already know. So you read it almost like it's a big review of something you should already know, but if you're seeing it for the first time, there's a lot of detail missing that helps you fill in all of the holes. Well, if it's self-study, where do you go? Who do you ask? You can go online, you can look at the forums, but a lot of times these are candidates answering candidates. Is that the right answer? And you may read one thread and there are people with different answers in there. Well, which one's the right answer? Candidates at level 3 are more likely to use an approved prep provider at level 3 because they understand the value of having somebody explain the more difficult concepts as opposed to them taking 2-3 hours to get past a certain page because they can't get it. And if you're like me, if you can't get something, you can't let it go. You can't move on and you can't let it go until it's done. Candidates at level 1, because they're new to this, haven't recognized at this point that they may need a provider. They may see using a provider as, well, that's for other people, but not for me. I can do this on my own. It's big, and it lacks structure. When you're in university, what do you have? You have structure. You have your grade that you build over the semester. You have feedback every couple of weeks. You have a case study that you have to hand in. You have a midterm. You have an assignment. You have a presentation that you have to do. There's always a grade that you build towards. So it's never as if everything is do or die on the final exam. Well, this is. There's no one to tell you when to work. There's no penalty for not getting it done. So let's say that you say, this weekend, I'm going to get these 2 readings done. And the weekend comes and goes and you don't. There's no penalty Monday morning because there was nothing due. And if there's no penalty, it doesn't keep you honest. It doesn't keep you on track. So I would say that if that sounds like you, well, I tried to do it on my own. I had 2 months to go. I read the readings. I did the best I could, but I failed. Should I quit? Well, no. Your process is terribly flawed. You didn't give yourself enough time, and you didn't have somebody with you on that journey that you could ask a question to, or that could help explain something in 5 minutes as opposed to you taking 2 to 3 hours to figure it out. Or worse, looking somewhere online and potentially getting the wrong answer and it never quite fitting together, because there's quite a bit of content at level 1 that you need for level 2. And if you don't quite get it at level 1, level 2 becomes a little bit more tricky. So if your process is broken, then no, you shouldn't just stop. Fix the process. Give yourself more time and find somebody that can get you through this. Best way, go to CFAI's website. They have a list of approved prep providers, and you really should try to stay with that list. There are other providers out there, but they're outside of that approved list. You don't know if they know what they're doing. At least with the APPs, you know that they've been vetted and they know what they're doing. And there's about 50 on that list, and it's a good mix between in-class and online, depending on what you prefer. And it's a range of prices. You have some very premium priced providers out there, and I would be careful with the premium priced, because premium price does not necessarily mean premium knowledge. I have seen that there are some that charge a premium price, but it's not as if I'm getting premium knowledge all of a sudden. We're on the list. We pride ourselves in having what we believe is one of the most accessible prices. So that if you've looked at a provider before, but you said, well, I don't have the other 1,000 or 1,500 US. I just spent that much on CFAI. We're far, far lower than that. And you can also test us. You can buy just one section on our site. So level 1, one section for the December exam is 28 Canadian dollars. It's about 21 US dollars for a whole section. Give it a shot. I mean, before you walk away, spend $21 and just give it a shot and see if a different type of education delivery can get you through that section. I think you'd be amazed at what it can do. So fix your process. Now, let's talk about the conditions under which you should just stop. Let's say that you're sitting in front of me and I'm your academic counselor, and I ask you, some questions about why you failed, and I get, some answers out of you of, well, I'm really not that interested. I didn't really care too much. The courses were really boring. I just couldn't stay interested. I'd start reading the book, but I'd lose interest really fast. Well, look, that's a sign that this field may not be for you. Maybe you took it because you felt pressured from work. Maybe you saw your friends and colleagues taking it and you thought, well, I guess that's something I should do as well. So you decided to pursue it. But your heart's not in it. You don't find it interesting. It's rather boring, rather painful for you to get through. Don't do it. It's okay. It is not a requirement for success. It is something that adds to your resume. It is something that can make the difference when it comes down to people. But look at some of the successful people in the industry. Carl Icahn, Warren Buffett, they don't have a charter. Would you question them? Would you say, well, they don't know what they're doing? Come on. So it's It's not for everyone. It's not necessary. And if you find it boring and your heart's not in it, don't do it. You can come back to it later in life. Maybe you need a tour of duty in the real world and before you fall in love with the whole finance field, and then you come back to it with a different mindset. That's fine. Let it go. If you didn't enjoy it and it was boring, let it go. All right, for the second reason, and this one is a little bit more of an uncomfortable conversation to have with candidates and with students. The good thing and the bad thing about level 1 with CFAI, it's the same thing, is that there are no entrance requirements. Other than being in your final year of university, you don't have to submit transcripts. You don't have to apply to the program and be approved based on your proven ability or grades that you have. A 62 average and a 95 average student can both take level 1 CFA. The 62 average student is more likely to fail for two reasons. Number one, the behavior that got you that 62 to begin with is not going to change suddenly. It's probably going to deteriorate now that it's self-study. Number two, the cognitive limitation of only achieving a 62 is suddenly not going to change. It'll probably just deteriorate with self-study. So if you're in your final year of university and you're running a solid C average and you're giving it your best, this is probably not going to be a wise course of action. If you've taken level 1 and you have failed, and you can look at your transcripts from university and you're running a solid C average, you've got some C's, some B's, but you're a 65 to a low 70s average, nothing about that is going to change. And so if you've been through it and you failed, and that is the reason, yeah, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but it just might be a limitation that will be difficult to overcome, especially at level 2. And that even if you redid level 1, even if you really went all the way and you squeaked your way past level 1, level 2 is not incrementally more difficult for you. It's going to be exponentially more difficult for you. So under those two conditions, I would say, yes, I agree with those who say if you fail level 1, stop. If your heart's not in it, don't do it. If you're not capable of it, and you would know this because if you can look back through your university history, if there is a history of C's and B's, yeah, this is probably not for you as well. So I hope that helps.